Welcome back to Take Care with the Rowing Therapist. I'm your host, Danielle Wagmeister. Today I'm thrilled to sit down with someone who embodies the intersection of science, precision, and passion in rowing, Aram Lemmerer, founder of Row Smarter and creator of the BioRower. Aram has dedicated years to studying what makes boats and rowers move efficiently. Through his coaching, technology innovations, his rowing technique podcast, and video analyses, he's helped athletes at every level, especially masters rowers, understand the why behind their stroke. In this episode, we're diving into how masters athletes can use data, video feedback, and smart training to row faster, longer, and better without burning out. We'll also talk about the mental side of mastering technique later in life and how to stay motivated when perfection feels like a moving target. Aram, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
Wow, Danielle, I had to work hard to keep a straight face. What this is art you're talking about. It's very nice.
Oh,
Thanks for
well,
the intro.
of course, of course. It's an honor to have you on the show. So you've built your career at the crossroads of engineering and rowing. How did your journey start and what inspired the creation of the BioRower?
Back pain. Back pain. I started when I was 10 years old to row. And what the first thing that really got me hooked to rowing was seeing a quadruple scull flying by, a warm up for a regatta. And I will never forget the sound and the energy. And it's a monumental experience when you see this for the first time. So that was fascinating. And 10-year-old little boy, I was standing at the shore, said, whatever it takes. I'm going to be in a national team quad one day. Whatever, I don't know what it takes. It's probably going to be more than I have right now, but I'm going to make it. And I did make it.
Great.
And then I was 20 years old, 19 years old. I had achieved my goal. I was in the under 23 national team, rowed the worlds. And it was such a disappointing experience. Plus, my back was simply injured from excessive training on the erg. I was part of that first generation of the linear erg. I didn't know what it was. And a friend of mine, who was a late starter in rowing, who was part of my rowing club, said, "Hey, Aram, you're spending too much time on the erg. You need to learn to row." I said, "Well, what do you mean? I'm not on the erg." I said, "No, that's not rowing. Look at the old guys. They were 80 plus. How come they row pain-free every day and you don't?" I said, "Because they don't train as hard." I said, No, that's not the case. You're doing the wrong motion. Look at that." So we built a prototype of an on-land boat. That was the original idea. Just a solution for myself. And of course it didn't work because we didn't understand the forces. The energy is tremendous. When you try to redirect so much energy back into the thing you're sitting on, you need much more material and strong material and well-built stuff than imaginable at the beginning. So prototype by prototype, we built something that actually worked. And eventually we sold the first prototype to somebody who said, "Wow, cool project." And then we had to build another one. So then we tried to sell it to other people, not interested. And we met other people and said, "Can I have two prototypes?" And eventually it grew. But for the first 17 years, I did not take out any money. Nothing.
Oh, wow.
I had
Wow.
2 day jobs on average to pay for everything. It was a hard journey. It still is to a certain degree. But I think I wanted to build the rowing machine that I would have needed. And I still, I just had a guy here actually an American. He was here, wanted to try the BioRower. And he told me back from his collegiate rowing days, he had 3 broken discs. And broken discs are pretty insane. That's quite a bit of an injury.
Yeah.
And he attributes this to the erg. So he came here to try out and see, is the BioRower like the real boat? And he really liked it. So that's, this situation that I had is a situation that many people have. I'm not unique.
Yeah. Okay. For those who don't know, how is the BioRower different from your traditional ergs like the Concept 2 or Hydro?
It's like a boat. It feels like a boat. I mean, you tried it out.
Yeah.
The cockpit is like built like a boat. That's the original thing. We never looked at other ergs. We looked at a boat. So how do you move with a boat? What does it feel like to row a boat? And when we developed the resistance, indeed, that the cockpit geometry, we actually took a measure tape, looked at a boat, and said, aha, this is what you need to have. These are the adjustment ranges and all that stuff. And because we were so close to the actual boat, there was somebody who built sensors. Back then, we didn't have our own sensors. And he equipped the BioRower, the first prototypes with sensors that he also used for the boat. So I did trial runs. I went from the boat to the BioRower, from the boat to the BioRower within 10 minutes. Did I have the same stroke lengths, the same force curves? Was it the same feeling? Did I produce the same data with the same rowing? So we tried this with others as well. This is how we built it. It was never the erg, it was always the boat. How can we get closer to the boat? How can you become better than the boat by requiring more precision at the catch, for example? Because on the BioRower, if you're not precise, if you catch with the left hand ahead of the right one, or you stabilize the left hand earlier than the right one, then you will simply not feel the same resistance both sides. It's not necessarily that you're stronger or weaker on one side, it's just you're not as precise. And that is something that the boat will not tell you. The boat will just swivel a bit and it will move and say, it's all right. You don't know how much you're losing. So there's certain things today that you can train better than in a boat. You can never really replicate it, but you can prepare.
Beautiful. It's amazing. Rowing is an art and a science. In your work with masters, what are some of the most common technical errors you see that hold rowers back?
There are two main groups or categories. The first category is lack of physical capabilities. I don't mean strength, not necessarily even leg strength or core strength or all of that. I mean pelvic full range of motion strength. This is a big issue. It's just a simple thing like, can you reach forward and grab your toes? And can you do this with a straight back? Can you, for example, do an overhead deep squat? Most people cannot. You don't have to be able to do this to be a good rower, but it certainly will make you much better if you could. Can you do a nice squat in front of a wall? Do you have enough ankle mobility? So it's very basic things. And people don't look at this. They jump in a boat and they want to train as much as they can and row as much as they can. And so they count the meters, not the kilometers. I always find it funny when people count meters. I did 40,000 meters. That's 40 kilometers. It's like 3 rowing sessions. And people try to have all these great numbers instead of focusing on the basics that you need. So, and the second thing is really technique. This is when people try to move themselves, they erg the boat. So because they spend so much time on a linear rowing machine, they are conditioned to do things that will make you fast on a linear drive rowing machine, but will not help you in the boat. So they will overreach at the catch, jump body weight on the handles at the catch, therefore have excessive lean back at the finish, or no lean back at all in order to avoid that mistake. They don't understand that they need to move the boat underneath themselves. They don't understand they need to transfer the energy of their legs around the pins for sculling or around the pins in sweep. So it's the basic understanding that's sometimes missing. And if you just work a bit on both, you don't need to be perfect, but if you work a bit on improving the physical capabilities and if you work a bit on technique, then you can make pretty massive progress. And then there's probably a third thing I should mention. And it's the complete wrong perception of what a good training session is.
Oh.
As a coach, the easiest thing for me to sell is a session where you are completely spent and wasted after every session.
Okay.
So, because then you emit endorphins, you're really happy, you say, wow, I accomplished something. But in fact, you are ruining yourself. That's the perfect path to overtraining. Because when people start to row, they're motivated, but motivation subsides. It doesn't last forever. So what you need to build is a habit that is sustainable. But you cannot build a habit that is sustainable by going all out four times a week. It just doesn't work this way. Or having 7 training sessions and you've never done sports before in your life. that what you need to do is implement training sessions that specifically target the anaerobic threshold. And you don't even need to do a lactate test necessarily at the beginning. You can target this in different ways. But sometimes you need these boring but very structured endurance sessions where you do the low stuff, the low to mid stuff, the low to mid to bit higher stuff. That is weirdly exhausting, but it doesn't make you happy immediately, but it builds unbelievable aerobic base. And you need that base in order to recover faster from the high intensity sessions that you then should really do with high intensities. And what I see what many people do is they never do the appropriate low stuff, and they never dare to do true high intensity where they go beyond their limits because they're afraid of failing, because they're always conditioned to give it all. You can't give it all, so you always hold a bit back.
Wow, that's helpful. How can rowers use objective feedback like force curves or video analysis without getting overwhelmed by the data?
It's a simple principle. If you understand what a force curve is, you can actually mesh curves, and that's probably the fastest way to build fast crews. That's not just for masters rowers, it's also for international rowers. It's actually the basics, and I'm astonished that not more crews are using this. A force curve works this way. Let's say you want to pull a car, and you want to pull a car for 2 feet. The question is, how much force do you apply for the first couple of inches, for the following inches, until the last inch of the second foot? And let's say force is measured in Newton. It's a big difference between force and power. So you apply, let's say, 100 Newton, 120 on the second inch, 140, and so on and so on and so on. And you can do the same thing for a rowing stroke. So you're at the catch. You are at 70 degrees before the oar lock, so a good catch angle. And how many newtons do you apply? Okay, you start with 100 Newton, and then 10 degrees later you have 150 Newton, and towards the end of the drive you have 200 Newton. So you can actually, with all the dots, degree by degree, you get a line, you get a graph. And you don't need to understand graphs, but you can look at the picture. Say, does your force curve look like a bell, or does it look like a plateau, or does it look like a pyramid? And essentially, if you have a pyramid and you row with somebody in a double who has a plateau, one of you is going to feel lonely for most of the time because you're not moving the boat the same way. What you want to do is just match the graphics of the curve. You don't need to be a scientist to understand this. It's a really simple concept. And the way you apply force and the way you use your body levers, the way you use your legs, when you use your upper body, how tight are you, how relaxed are you, this defines how you can create the same shape of curve as your partner. There's nothing worse than having 2 strong guys on a linear drive rowing machine and they just don't match. You can do as much seatbelt racing as you want. It's not going to give you the data. It's going to give you a Stone Age estimate. But if you just looked at laboratory force curves, sorry, but they have different ways of moving the boat. In a single, it works perfectly. The pyramid can be fast, the plateau can be fast. I think the plateau is faster. But as we all know, in a single, weird things work because you're alone. But the moment it comes to team boat rowing, you have to find a common handwriting, and you have to match this with your physical capabilities. And because let's say if you and I rowed a double, your physique is different than mine. Your body's built different than mine. That means we cannot possibly look identical in our motion if we want to have the same influence on the boat. So logically, we need to look slightly different, but our influence should be synchronized. And in order to measure good force curves, what you need to do is you need a strain gauge, some kind of force sensor that is reliable. You cannot rely on algorithms based on flywheel speed and handle release speed, and this is very typical for many rowing machines. What you need is a strain gauge. It's kind of a force sensor, and you need an oar handle position sensor. So where is the oar handle? How much force is being applied where? So it's common sense, very logical. And then you just analyze the raw data. how much force do you apply at degree 1, at 2, at 3, at the end of the stroke. And then you get a nice, realistic curve. And this is what you can compare. And if you don't know anything about curves, look at the picture. Does yours look like mine? I don't know. It's more like a peak. Can we make it a bit flatter? And then you start to play. That's what people do on the BioRower, for example. They see the curves and say, I don't know. Yours look different than mine. And let's do a 1,000 meter race and look at the average curve. So you have a nice pyramid. I get a bit of a late peak. Well, can I try to have a bit of an early peak and you try to flatten the pyramid? And that makes the double much faster.
Ah, very interesting.
It's
You
intuitive.
often, yeah. I mean, there's so many pieces to all of the physics in rowing, so it's just helpful to pick your brain and appreciate it from your perspective. But you often say that good technique isn't about looking perfect; it's about being efficient, like you're talking about here. Can you explain what efficiency means biomechanically?
So if you look at a human body, you've got big and small muscles.
Okay.
Ultimately, what we want to do in rowing is we want to transfer as much force as possible from feet to the hands. And we have to do this not just once. It's not like a one-off deadlift. We have to do this repetitively. If we talk about masters, let's say a 1,000 meter race. So we do it for, on average, let's say 3.5 to 4.5 minutes, or say it's a fast 8, let's say 3 minutes to 4 minutes. This is a time duration where we cannot rely on strength alone. We rely on endurance to a certain degree as well. Efficiency means that you're using the biggest muscles you have for the job to transfer force, and muscles that are suitable to also do the job when you become anaerobic. That means when your ATP yield per mole of glucose reduces to almost nothing, 2. So when you become tired, let's put it this way. And one of the big factors of being efficient is to use the levers, legs, upper body, and arms, bluntly speaking. But the upper body actually consists of 2 levers you can use, along with body weight. And that's a big, big factor in rowing. Understanding that it's not you who wants to create emotion. It's not about you moving your body. It's about you moving the boat. Because ultimately, it's not you who has to cross the finish line, the boat has. There's a funny story of, I think it was the US Junior Women's 8 in 2003 at the Junior Worlds in Athens in Greece. They tested the track before the Olympics. And it was so windy that they had to race at 5 in the morning or something like that. And I think one of the eights, all the girls had to jump into the water and swim with the boat across the finish line, so it would count. The boat had to cross the finish line, not the rowers.
Wow.
And that's the interesting part. So we want to move the boat. That's what needs to cross the finish line.
Yeah.
So this is why spending time on a linear drive rowing machine, even if it's dynamic, you don't learn this. You have to use your body weight. So very simple concept. If you had to explain, let's say somebody comes from Mars and say, what are you guys doing with this thing you call rowing? So look, you bring yourself into a starting position, and then the boat really is not keen on changing its speed through the water because water has a lot of resistance. But what you have these 2, sheet-like things we call blades. And you put them in the water, and because water is so dense, it will not move away very quickly. So you can actually grab the water a bit with a blade. Try to make it not slip, because the more it slips, the less grip you have. So you have to be good with your placement and try to keep it vertically stable. But that's finicky details. And then you push with your legs, but you have to be careful. You want to have a long acceleration phase. So if you give it all at the catch, your body is going to be overwhelmed because the strongest part of your body are the legs. So be careful. You have to think the long game for the entire stroke. Then at the beginning of the drive, you push with your legs, but instead of you following the idea that now I have to move at this speed and this speed and this speed, you distance yourself from that idea and say, I'm going to push with my legs and wait until I feel a resistance in my lats, because that's the biggest superficial torso muscle we can use. And you have to be aware that just because you start to push with your legs, it doesn't mean that this is going to be the force that the boat is subjected to, because the blades now grab the water, but water doesn't move away. So water sends energy back through the oar into your body. And this is usually when people twist when the answer comes from the water. So now you have to find a force balance. You plant yourself between the foot stretcher and the hands, and the oar hands or the blades. And when you do this, you have to wait for the energy to come back. That's milliseconds, even less. And then you try to gently but persistently push that boat past that anchored blade. And you want to increase that acceleration as much as possible. And now comes the effect of hydrodynamics. One is efficient if one understands that anything that accelerates too quickly in the water will face exponential resistance. So resistance, it's like when you jump into the water and you don't make a nice dive, it's going to hurt. You smack the water, it's going to hurt. So water doesn't like to move away too quickly. So anything that accelerates too quickly is going to face a lot of resistance. So the idea is to distribute the acceleration exactly at the fine line of doing too much and too little. That's the perfect acceleration curve. So if you give it all at the catch, then you will have too much acceleration at once, and you will push too hard with your legs, and the moment the resistance comes back from the blades through your body, it's going to overwhelm you. It's not good. It's like doing a deadlift, and you push too hard with your legs, and you haven't had the patience to lift the weight, to wait for the weight to be felt by your body. It's the same principle.
Oh,
So the
totally.
idea really is wait for the resistance that comes back and try to move the boat over the entirety of the available length that you have and accelerate it consistently with legs, then legs to upper body, which is the greatest lever we have, and with the help of body weight. And once you understand this, you're efficient. You might not be
Great.
perfect, but to a large degree, it's going to work.
Yeah, amazing. What have you learned from watching hundreds of masters rowers on video? Are there patterns unique to masters athletes, either strengths or just tendencies?
There are different types.
Okay.
Not everybody has the same athletic background. So there's the lifter type who's done a lot of weightlifting before and who was a gym rat or did some other stuff. They're usually 210s. I found that many masters overbrace. That means they're really tight and stiff, especially when they come from the erg. They protect their back, so they deadlift the stroke. So they never suspend nicely into the drive. They just don't feel this. And the other type are the endurance athletes, so former runners or cyclists. They don't have the core strength. They just they do have the endurance, but they're lacking the deep muscle core strength to row. That's something you don't see about rowers, but most rowers are their core is so strong that I had a car accident many years ago, and my car landed on the roof. Somebody crashed into me, my car landed on the roof. And I still remember turning off the engine overhead, because now you're on the roof, and getting out, and I didn't even have elevated heart rate. There was nothing, no injury, nothing. I was very fortunate.
Wow.
But
Wow.
I benefited from many years of rowing because my core strength was so much that it didn't affect me. It could have been much worse, and I probably was lucky in all of that. But I think rowers are fit in a way that is difficult to grasp for people who have never done the sport. So, coming back to your question, many masters lack that kind of core strength at the beginning because deep muscles take a while to build up. And therefore, they overbrace. And you need to teach them patience. Patience that training is the conglomerate effect of load and rest, and load and rest. And many masters just hate to rest because the only easy day was yesterday, and we're all Navy SEALs. You have to tell them you're not a Navy SEAL because you cannot be replaced. You only have one body, so you have to take care of it.
Yeah. I love that. I think that in my own journey, I'm really appreciating how important recovery is to training. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. How do you help athletes balance analytical precision with their self-trust and that flow you're talking about?
Oh, scientific evidence is super simple. There's something called perceived exertion or perceived load,
Okay. Okay.
and you can use a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 6. I use 1 to 6, and many athletes go by heart rate. For example, you tell them do 10 minutes, and I personally use 11 different training zones because it helps me to be more fine-tuned and more accurate in the development. And if you ask athletes to stick to a certain heart rate, their pace will fluctuate. They're nervous to think about a race, heart rate goes up. It has nothing to do with the current load you have. So I use heart rate as a secondary parameter. The
Okay.
primary parameter is speed in the boat, or watts. And the second most important parameter is perceived load.
Okay.
And then perceived load works in such a way. One is easy as pie. It's a walk in the park. It's walking your dog. It's nothing. 6 is failure. You cannot sustain the pace, and you push, and you feel like the last loser on earth, and you still push. It's just devastating. And
Okay.
I go in zero point 0.5 increments. So intensity 4, which in my world resembles 4 minimal lactate, anaerobic threshold,
Okay.
should be around a 3.5 to 4 perceived load on the scale of 1 to 6. So it's quite something, but it's not devastating. And this is something you can then transfer into the boat. And the same principle applies. As a very simple question is, in the morning, how do you feel? 1, perfect. 6, get me to the emergency room. And everybody knows HRV, heart rate variability. So I found out that asking somebody how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 6 is at least 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours ahead of HRV. It's more accurate. And there are scientific studies that suggest the same. So you know much better how you're doing.
I see. Okay. So that builds that self trust, learning to
Yes,
check in with themselves and really
yes.
rate where they're at. Yeah, beautiful.
It takes time to calibrate, but I mean, you do have time.
Yeah. Do you use HRV in training, and how would you look at HRV with training?
I So I personally don't use it for myself,
Okay.
not at all. Because
Okay.
I don't like to have electronic things around me when I'm sleeping,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore I don't want anything else to measure things. But some people like that, and if the data is available, of course I will use it.
Okay.
If you don't have it available, make a mark in the morning. How are you? That
Yeah.
gives me all the data I need. I think we
Yeah.
live in an age where we think that data solves all the problems, to a degree where people can't even do sport without checking on 25 apps how they're doing and recording everything and Instagramming themselves, and just feel how you're doing. Enjoy the sport, enjoy the motion, and enjoy and listen to the water in the boat.
Yeah.
Listen to this. You become aware of these. You don't have to be in your Om state or Buddhist state. It's just basic things, being present a bit more and not so much in a surreal electronic world to a certain degree.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's one of the things I appreciate about rowing is that feeling of connection with the environment, with the water, the natural world around you. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that thought. So masters athletes are balancing careers, family, and recovery in ways that younger athletes don't. What do you think are most important training principles for master rowers to embrace?
The principles are the principles. They're the same. It's
Okay.
load and rest and load and rest. But for masters athletes, there are different things that count. For example, personal stress. So I have a training log where I ask people, what's your personal stress level and worry level? How much sleep are you getting? What's the quality of the sleep?
Yeah.
You might not be able to fill this out, but at least you ask yourself the question. And many of the people I coach online, it's just frequent contact and say, how's it going? And I know many things about their private lives because it helps me to understand how they're doing on an overall scale. Issues in a
Yeah.
business. If you run a business, there are always issues. I don't know a
Yeah.
business that has no issues. So that this effect is much greater. And plus, especially if you have a family, the responsibilities you have cannot be compared to the responsibilities most people have when they're 16, 17, 18, 20, 25. You just don't know. If you don't have kids to take care of or relatives or other people or just dogs, somebody to take care of, you just don't know. But if you, for example, myself, I think since I left national team and started my businesses with side jobs and all that stuff, I don't think there was a week where I worked less than 90 hours. Since my
Wow.
early 20s, is 21, 22. Most of the weeks, 100 hours, either was sleep or work. That's it. And I neglected myself. I always thought rowing is, I'm going to be in a national team. Then it wasn't a national team, so that's it. It's not much more professional than I thought. And for me, I didn't want to go on to the Olympics. It just wasn't my world anymore. And then over the course of the years of neglecting myself and working like crazy and to the degree where doctors told me either you change your lifestyle, you're going to be dead in 10 years. I realized that I had lost my identity as a rower. I worked in rowing, but I wasn't an active rower anymore. And you cannot be both. That's understandable to a certain degree. But you should still take time for yourself to be fit enough that you feel comfortable. This is, this is I. This is the person I recognize. That's the feeling I recognize. And at the beginning, I thought I was too egotistic. I should be working, should be spending time with the family, I should be doing this. Then I realized, no. If I don't do this, that person isn't going to be around much longer.
Wow.
You got to do something. And I think many masters rowers and many late starters start to row or come back to rowing or stay competitively fit or want to become competitively fit because they understand it's A, a sport you can do until you drop dead old. And B, you have to take care. It's the only body you have to live in. And that's what I learned. And that's what masters think as well. I'm 43 now. Over the last couple of years, slowly, I learned to say, yes, responsibilities, but there has to be a time every other day at least where I say, okay, for 45 minutes, drop a bomb. If you don't drop it in my head, I'm working out. It's my time.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
this gives you tremendous relief.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I feel the same way. It's such a, and I think, like you said, you can do it well into old age. And I feel like when I am taking care of rowing and prioritizing my own well being, I just show up better in all the other areas that are important. So just appreciate your perspective on that.
It's interesting
So,
you feel that too. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I
Well, one of my long term goals is getting into the Octo Club. So the
what is
octogenarians, the 80-year-olds that come to these competitions, and I just admire them. I got to hold, I was volunteering at nationals as a stake boat holder, and I held the stern of a 91-year-old who was racing his single, and I thought, this guy has no idea how much he's inspiring me right now. So
91? I mean, this is an age where some people think about, can I hold the next coffee or not?
yeah,
Yeah.
and then he's traveling internationally. He competes at Worlds. I've seen him at Worlds the last couple of years. So very inspiring that,
An athlete of mine he is in his early 70s. So he had a discussion with his doctor, and the doctor said, "Wow, there are not many 80-year-old rowers," and he said, "No, no, there are. You just don't. You see them, but you don't recognize them as 80. They don't look 80."
Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was talking to Jim Dietz on this show earlier, and he mentioned being in the airport and someone saying something to him about taking his shoes off. And he's like, no, 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 I'm over 75. That doesn't apply to me. And they were like, you're over 75? So, so you're absolutely right. And you kind of answered this, but just curious, you've coached rowers who have come back from injury or burnout. What mindset shifts do you find most powerful for keeping the sport joyful?
Oh, I was in the same situation as an athlete. Um, if we talk about professional athletes, um, the first step is to reduce the amount of endurance volume, which sounds counterintuitive because endurance volume actually helps you to release stress.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot minimize it to nothing, so you have to keep a certain level. But one of the main problems they have is that they're simply empty. They've done too much. And I was in these shoes as well. It's not good. Endurance training is important, but it's like withdrawing money from a bank account, and strength training is paying money in. You need to spend money in order to live, but you need a good balance. I've just worked with somebody in Hungary, same issue. He simply didn't want to row anymore. Absolutely talented, massive talent, candidate for the national team, great guy. And I told him, look, for the next 4 months, I want you to do nothing but strength training. Impress your girlfriend with a six pack, get jacked, and enjoy life. Listen to good rock music, and just stop doing too much endurance. You need to build up the aggression in you. You need to build up some more testosterone. If you do too much endurance, testosterone really is down. So that was from a physical level. That's one of the problems. So people who are usually really burned out, from sport, I ask them to do more strength and less endurance.
Okay, great. So we were talking about longevity and performance. What do you think a sustainable training week looks like for a competitive masters rower?
A week,
Mm-hmm.
I think in years. Traditionally, you would structure a year as a macrocycle with
Okay.
around 10 to 12 mesocycles, so
Okay.
roughly months, 4 to 6
Okay.
weeks, sometimes more. And every mesocycle is a period of 4 to 6 weeks. You progressively prepare the athlete for the main peak of season. So if you do the same thing every week, you're not progressing.
Okay.
But let's say we're talking about, I mean, it's now November, the Northern Hemisphere. We expect races next April to May. So this would be the season where we build substance, endurance-wise, as well as strength-wise. So right now, the training plans that I'm writing for my athletes, we do about 3 strength sessions per week.
Okay.
Let's say if somebody does 6 training sessions a week, I would have 3 strength sessions and 3 complementary, partially optional endurance sessions to get the lactate out of the body, not to develop endurance.
Okay.
If somebody does only 4 training sessions a week or 3, there would be 3 weight training sessions and 1 to 2 endurance sessions.
Okay.
Then we would go away from strength for about a week or 2 after a period of 3-4 weeks. And then we will work on the 3 or 4 or 5 minimum. So this is where we get rid of the lactate. This is where we do a couple 2K pieces at stroke rate, let's say 22, 23, 24, 25, 85, 90% force input, not 100. Trying to build the anaerobic threshold, trying to teach the body to be aerobic at high watt levels, gradually, slowly, in a structured way, build it up. And in between that, we would have weeks where we do very little volume, very little intensities. Most of the time, when athletes feel their strongest, this is when you have to give them a rest. So my job as a coach is not so much to motivate people. My job is to stop people from doing too much. When you're your strongest, now it's time to take a rest. And quite often I get the question, hey, Aram, you're crazy. I'm so strong. Just improve there. It's just, yes, perfect. Take a rest. When I was younger, I used to be impressed by this and say, okay, train on. And every time I did this, a week later, the rower was in overtraining. This is usually when the heart rate goes down during training. You can pull high watts, and you just endure the pain of longer pieces at around 3 to 5 millimole better. You can take more, you're physically stronger, but exactly then you need a rest.
Okay. And I know I've followed along on your show with some stretching routines that you shared. How often do you incorporate like the stretching for that flexibility and the compression, the things that you were talking about earlier?
So for my personal training, I stretch after almost every single training session, even strength, just
Okay.
for me. Some people disagree and say you should not stretch after strength workouts, and there's some scientific evidence that makes perfect sense. For me personally, I do it because I recover faster.
Okay.
But definitely, you should be stretching after every endurance workout.
Okay. Good.
It
Good
doesn't have to
advice.
be the full 15, 20-minute program. If you do the basic hamstrings and glutes and hip flexors, and maybe the one where you lay flat on your back and you try to get your toes behind your head, the uncomfortable one, or where it's difficult to catch your breath. This one is really opens up the back. These 2 or 3, if you hold them for a minute each with proper loading, that's just a nice recovery stretch. It's not, if you really want to improve flexibility, then you have to stretch in a different way. Then you go into your maximum stretch position, you hold it for 45 seconds, then you contract into the stretch, and then you go a bit deeper. You can do this up to 2 or 3 times. This is how you increase your flexibility. But I use stretching mostly, though, as an increased recovery, as a recovery tool. You just feel better, sleep better.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. So back to technology. What's exciting you right now in rowing technology, either in your own work or across the sport?
There are multiple very, very good developments. So what's exciting me are not related to the work that I do or not directly, is the idea of the sliding rigger to come back. It's all technology and it makes perfect sense. And I found if people pretend they row in a sliding rigger, they become faster, even though they're rowing a fixed rigger system.
Oh,
So that's
interesting.
interesting. People become more open to things that actually improve the sport of rowing.
Okay.
What's exciting me is the Randall project, where we teamed up. Ian and I teamed up, and I'm the guy who manufactures it. Ian is the developer, and now we have scientific studies that actually explain exactly what we knew from the start: that a blade needs to rest vertically in the water quickly, so that it has no slip. And I mean, the speed gains are insane. This is the first time I tried it. I had laughed hysterically. Ian sent me one of his prototypes from Australia, and I put it on. And you take a stroke; it's like support wheels. It's you cannot be stupid enough not to be fast. It has its downsides. So in choppy conditions, if you don't get the blades off the water, sometimes the blades catch. Nevertheless, you're still faster. So the data backs it up. You're faster. And technology-wise, at BioRower, we're bringing out the 2026 series, and that's a pretty big step up for us because you can connect the BioRowers to team units, so they tilt with each other, they slide with each other.
Oh,
You can have the
wow.
full oars. The foot stretcher system comes now with pins, so it has a measurement system integrated. So if you adjust the foot stretchers, it gives you a number how far away from the oarlocks you are. You then can translate this measurement you have for the BioRower that works based on a force curve readout for you and take it into the book.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
there are 23 points of improvement. So we're working very hard on this, and yeah, design wise, it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. So this is what excites me the most at the moment.
That's awesome. So, how do you see AI or real time feedback shaping the next generation of training? I know you kind of just started talking about that with your technology answer.
Um, I think AI is overrated. The more they talk about it, the less I believe in it. I use
Hmm.
it to a certain degree myself, but
Okay.
essentially, it can do certain tasks well, but not error free.
Hmm.
Whenever I do video analysis, um, people ask me what AI software are you using. I say, no, I'm using experience in my eye. This is not AI, it's my eye.
Hmm.
Um, because you can do certain things, but if you use that, then you don't really understand. AI doesn't understand deeper connection behind road because AI is never road itself.
Yes. Yes.
So it can tell you that angle is not right, and you should have this angle and that angle and this angle. But ultimately, you will not understand what you actually want to achieve. A friend of mine from Canada once told me a funny story. They said in the 80s, they had some Asian skiers over in Canada, and they would get into that position and hold it, and they get into that position and hold it because they taught themselves how to ski based on pictures. But there's a dynamic in between. You have to feel what's going on. So I don't think that
Yes.
just we probably have to circle back to the original question. What do we want? Do we want to look the same, or do we want to create the same influence? So I think where you can use AI is or technology in general, um, and that's where BioRower is going. What's my handwriting? What is your handwriting? Can we match up that team?
Mm.
So let's say you train in the US, I train in Austria, we want to row a double in Slovenia at the Worlds next year. And what are your force curve, Danielle? Oh, it's like this. Perfect. I try to match it. Look at that. Yeah, it looks about the same. Can we do a 1K? What is the force curve now? So this kind of on-land matching, this is where technology is going.
Mm.
There are good force curve systems for the boat. You cannot adjust the pitch on the blade yet. That's a big downside.
Okay.
So that's one of the projects that we're focusing on. Um, but the problem with these teamboat software applications or teamboat sensor applications is that you can influence somebody else. Let's say I don't like you in the boat, and we're innate, so I will do my best to have a pretty aggressive catch. So your catch looks weak because I take away the available resistance to a certain degree.
Oh, wow.
And everybody who rows with this on a permanent basis knows that. So there are, um, if you want to have reliable data, you have to do it in laboratory conditions. And technology, I think, is on the one hand side, we rowers are very interested in technology, but then we're not using what is already there. So
Yeah.
Ian Randall wrote a very interesting paper on that. Why are rowers so reluctant to adapt new technologies? Why is that the case? For example, when you brought out the Randall foil, data suggested 2 to 6% speed increase, which is insane for rowing. A brand new single will give you 1% at most, and that costs you a fortune. And that plastic strip is $120. So the reason for this, he said, was that rowing originally was a military sport. It was a sailor sport. It was never meant to be a sport of people who fought for themselves. So, interestingly, the ones who actually bring that open mindedness into rowing are the late starters, are the masters, are the ones that are not haven't been brought up with this kind of thinking and say, um, if I try something new and it doesn't work, I'm going to be the laughing stock. It's more like I try something new, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, tough luck. This
Yeah.
kind of thinking. So I think
Gotcha.
technology is there. What needs to change is the attitude.
Mm. Okay. So tell our listeners where they can find you, learn more about Row Smarter, or submit their rowing videos for feedback.
So my website is armtraining.com. The
Okay.
BioRower is on bioRower.com. I started a platform where I'm gathering information as gradually as an information hub. It's called rowing.zone, where it's essentially a forum. It's like a social network for rowers, and it's slowly
Great.
building. These are the main hubs. Of course, so my handle on rowing.zone is at Aram, but you find me on Instagram, you find me on Facebook. Where else? That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Great. That's awesome. And people can submit videos to you to get
Yes,
analysis.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
I
awesome.
hold Zoom classes, so every Saturday there's a Zoom class where you just need your phone and headset, and I coach you for 45 minutes every Saturday. I
Great.
do one-on-one sessions online. Many people don't know this. I actually coach people online in the boat. So I have the camera in the boat, and I'm like next to them all the time. So this kind of permanent feedback. It's really good. Then, of course, I
Yeah.
hold the camps in Vienna. So next year
Okay.
they're going to be 12 camps.
Oh,
Small,
wow.
5 to 6 people, no more than that. Mostly
Okay.
focusing on a single. And some of them are not even proficient rowers. Some of them are just intermediate who really want to make the step to become competitive.
Mhm. Yeah. So you offer a lot of different ways of getting support and feedback and help growing in the sport. So
That really
awesome.
is the idea. Yeah. I want to help
Yeah.
people become at least
Yeah.
competitively fit. Doesn't mean they have to compete, but they should be ready to if they want to.
Yeah.
This
Love
is it's a
that.
good lifestyle.
It absolutely is. So, if rowing is a metaphor for life, what has rowing taught you about resilience, balance, or purpose?
You have to be able to work your butt off without seeing immediate results. This is what rowing is for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
What is it for you?
yeah, I agree. I think it's a lot of the discipline, the structure, it just it's fun, and it also helps me with those longer term goals of maintaining independence and fitness and cognitive health, all of those things. So the carrot might be showing up for a competitive event, but I'm really working towards rowing when I'm 80.
Yes.
So yeah, exactly. So um, Aram, I want to thank you so much for your insight and experience. What I love about your approach is that it honors both the numbers and the person in the boat, and and that's what this podcast is all about: taking care of both body and mind, so we can perform and live well. So thank you again so much for joining me.
Daniel, thank you, and I wish you all the best for your great podcast. Keep it
Oh,
going.
thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you for being here. Please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll hear when new episodes are being released.